Guys, it's here. It is Mueller time. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God and Freedom Show. Alrighty, so I hope everyone has had a great day so far. Happy Friday. We have a lot to get to, so let's not waste any time. So about 12 o'clock yesterday, the entire Mueller report was dropped, or rather, actually the entire report was dropped, but there was of course some redaction to it. But nonetheless, it finally dropped after 2 years of this whole nonsense into whether President Trump colluded with the Russian government to influence the 2016 election. It is finally done. It's been done for a little bit because, as you recall, a few weeks back, Attorney General William Barr released a summary of the Mueller report. And of course, as we've seen, Mueller has not come out and uh, denied that any of that was true. And as we've seen with the actual report, everything that Barr said in that summary was turned out to be true. But I'll get to my actual thoughts a little bit. But first, we're going to actually go through the entire report. Yeah, all 448 pages of the Mueller report. I got it all right here, as you can see. The full entire report, all in this binder. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm not going to go through all that. I don't think I haven't even read the entire thing yet. But I just read like some more of the important parts of the report. So how it's all kind of set up is basically there's a set up in two volumes. Volume one is over collusion, and then volume two is over obstruction of justice. So first, we're going to go through volume one, and then after that, I'm going to go to volume two, and then I get my thoughts of it after that. So, all right, before I get to this, I'm kind of want to give my opinion over yesterday. As you recall, before the Mueller report was dropped, William Barr, Attorney General William Barr, came out had a press conference. Um, as like some people other point out, that was a little weird to do that. Especially at the time that it was happening. But I think one of the reasons why I think he did that is just to kind of explain the nature of everything, basically. But like how like the obstruction of justice works, like it has to be like intent to actually charge President Trump with any criminality in that area. But anyways, yeah, that's my kind of takeover and what was going to be why that happened. But anyways, sorry. All right, here is the report, and now again, this is volume one right here, and this is all like the relevant sections of it. All right, all right. This first section. The social media campaign and the GRU or GRU hacking operations coincided with a series of contacts between President Trump campaign officials and individuals with ties to the Russian government. The office investigated whether those contacts reflected or resulted in the campaign conspiring or coordinating with Russia in its election interference activities. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts. The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. Period. Yeah. There's no buts or ands after that. It says right there. Yeah. No one in Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government to influence the election. So yeah, after 2 years of this entire nonsense, here we are. Of course, we already knew that from the Barr summary, but this is further proof to our points. But anyways, let's continues on like this. To this, the second part. All right, second, while the investigation identified numerous links between individuals with ties to the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign, the evidence was not sufficient to support criminal charges. Among other things, the evidence was not sufficient to charge any campaign official as an unregistered agent of the Russian government or other Russian principal. So those saying that Trump is a Russian agent and all that, that's of course flat out false, as Mueller said right here. And our evidence about the June 9th, 2016 meeting with WikiLeaks releases of hacked materials was not sufficient to charge criminal campaign finance violation. Further, the evidence was not sufficient to charge any member of the Trump campaign conspired with representatives with the Russian government to interfere in the 2016 election. Not just kind of repeating what was said earlier. But yeah, so as it says right there, no one was actually charged from that June 9th of 2016 meeting with a Russian lawyer. I forget her name, but I kind of had always thought that there was kind of something, if anything, something would come out with that. But it turns out nothing materialized from that meeting. Okay. Anyways, it continues on. Here's the third part. The office investigated several other events that have been publicly reported to involve potential Russian related contacts. For example, the investigation established that interactions between Russian ambassador Kazakli Kislyak and Trump campaign officials, both at the candidate's April 2016 foreign policy speech in Washington, D.C., and during the week of the Republican National Convention, were brief, public, and non-substantive. And the investigation did not establish that one campaign official's efforts to dilute a portion of the Republican Party platform on providing assistance to Ukraine were undertaken at the behest of candidate Trump or Russia. The investigation also did not establish that the meeting between Kislyak and Sessions in September 2016 at Sessions' Senate office included any more than a passing mention of the presidential campaign. So yeah, there were a lot of people saying that Sessions will be in trouble from that meeting. And that's kind of one of the reasons why he recused himself. But probably true, but it kind of, I guess, is more embarrassing than anything. But obviously, there was nothing illegal happened from that. So, anyways, it continues on. Further, the office learned that some of the individuals we interviewed whose conduct we investigated included one associated with the Trump campaign, deleted relevant communications or communicated during the relevant period using applications that featured encryption or that do not provide for a long-term retention of data and communication records. In such cases, the office was not able to corroborate witnesses' statements through comparison to contemporaneous communications or fully question witnesses about statements that appeared inconsistent with other known facts. Accordingly, while this report embodies factual and legal determinations that the office believes to be accurate and complete to the greatest extent possible, given these identified gaps, the office cannot rule out the possibility that the unavailable information would shed additional light on or cast in a new light the events described in the report. Okay. All right, and that continues on again. Starting on June 2016, the IRA contacted different U.S. persons affiliated with the Trump campaign in an effort to coordinate with pro-Trump IRA organized rallies inside the United States. In all cases, the IRA contacted the campaign while claiming to be U.S. political activists working on behalf of a conservative grassroots organization. The IRA's contacts included requests for signs and other materials to use at rallies, as well as requests to promote rallies and help coordinate logistics. While, in, while certain campaign and volunteers agreed to provide the requested support, for example, agreeing to set aside a number of signs, the investigation did not has not identified evidence that any Trump campaign official understood the requests were coming from foreign nationals. So yeah, there was a big scandal with that whole thing. Basically, how, as it says, there were Russian nationals trying to infiltrate into like Trump rallies, posing as Americans, and then the media was claiming that Republicans, of course, Republicans knew all that, or the Trump campaign knew about that, but obviously, evidence shows that they didn't know they were Russian nationals. They just assumed they were just regular Americans trying to help score the campaign. Right. All right, I'm gonna read just a couple more spots from the volume one, and I'm gonna actually post the entire report on in the description below, so you can read the entire thing for yourselves. Beginning in the summer of 2016, Assange and WikiLeaks made a number of statements about Seth Rich, a former DNC staff member who was killed in July 2016. The statements about Rich imply falsely that he had been the source of the stolen DNC emails. On August 9, 2016, the WikiLeaks Twitter account posted announced WikiLeaks has decided to issue a US $20,000 reward for information leading to conviction for the murder of DNC staffer Seth Rich. Likewise, on August 25, 2016, Assange was asked in an interview, "Why are you so interested in Seth Rich's killing?" And he responded, "We're very interested in anything that might be a threat to alleged WikiLeaks sources." The interviewer responded to Assange's statement by commenting, "I know you don't want to reveal your source, but it certainly sounds like you're suggesting that a man who leaked information to WikiLeaks was then murdered." Assange replied, "If there's someone who's potentially connected to our publication, then that person has been murdered in suspicious circumstances." And it doesn't mean that the two were connected. But it is very serious matter. The type of allegation is very serious and is taken very seriously by us. After the U.S. intelligence community publicly announced its assessment that Russia was behind the hacking operation, Assange continued to deny that the materials released by WikiLeaks had come from Russian hacking. According to the media reports, Assange told a U.S. congressman that the DC was hacked was an inside job, purported to have physical proof that the Russians did not give materials to Assange. So, as you recall, Assange was the lead WikiLeaks, which is a Russian front group. Although he denies that his group worked for Russia, it's obviously true. Mueller found proof of that. So yeah. So basically, what this volume one is saying is that there was, of course, Russia did attempt to influence our election through various ways, like through social media, through campaign rallies, through the DNC hacking and all that. But again, Mueller did not find any evidence that anyone on the Trump campaign actually coordinated or cooperated with the Russian government to influence 2016 election. Which should be a relief to everybody. Actually, I'm surprised that there's some on the left that was angry that they didn't find any evidence of this. But of course, as their main focus wasn't about whether Russia actually try to influence the election. They just wanted Trump out because it's still being still loses from obviously Trump won fair and square in the 2016 election, and they just can't get over that. So, anyways, let's get on to volume 2. So, like I said, volume 2 is basically going over kind of exceptional justice stuff and all that. So, so yeah, let's get into it. First, a traditional prosecution or declination decision entails a binary determination to initiate or decline a prosecution, but we determined not to make a traditional, excuse me, prosecutorial judgment. The Office of Legal Counsel has issued an opinion finding that the indictment or criminal prosecution of a sitting president would impermissibly undermine the capacity of the executive branch to perform its constitutionally assigned functions in the violation of the constitutional separation of powers. What that's basically saying is that the president cannot be charged with a crime and pulled out of office, arrested while he's in office. I think I could be wrong, but I think that's what it means. Basically, he has to be impeached from office to be, and then that's where he can go through the prosecution and all that. But I mean, if I got that wrong, so let me know. But anyways, continues on. Given the role of the special counsel as an attorney in the Department of Justice in the framework of the special counsel's regulations, see 28 U.S.C. 515, 28 CFR 607A. This office accepted LLC's legal conclusion for the purpose of exercising prosecutorial jurisdiction. And apart from the OLC's constitutional view, we recognize that a federal criminal accusation against the sitting president would place burdens on the president's capacity to govern and potentially preempt constitutional processes for addressing presidential misconduct. Second, while the OLC opinion concludes that the sitting president may not be prosecuted, it recognizes that a criminal investigation during the president's term is permissible. Especially what it's saying is they can't be charged with a crime while they're in office as a president, because I mean that would hinder their capacity to kind of govern and all that, as it says. But they can be investigated, obviously, which makes sense. But anyways, the OLC opinion also recognizes that president does not have immunity after leaves office, and if individuals other than the president committed an exception offense, they may be prosecuted at this time. Given those considerations, the facts known to us, and the strong public interest in safeguarding the integrity of the criminal justice system, we conducted a thorough and factual investigation into order to preserve the evidence with memories were and when memories were fresh and documentary materials were available. Third, we considered whether to evaluate the conduct where we investigated under the Justice Manual standards governing prosecution declination decisions, but we determined not to apply an approach that could potentially result in a judgment that the president committed crimes. The threshold to step under the Justice Manual standards is to assess whether a person's conduct constitutes a federal offense. U.S. Department of Justice Manual 927-220, 2018 Justice Manual. Fairness concerns counseled against potentially reaching that judgment when no charges can be brought. The ordinary means of an individual to respond to an accusation is through a speedy and public trial with all procedural protections that surround a criminal case. An individual who believes he was wrongly accused can use the process to seek to clear his name. In contrast, a prosecutor's judgment that crimes were committed but no charges will be brought offers no such adversarial opportunity for a public name clearing before in partial dictator. So okay, especially this, yeah, what that's part is going over is basically um, yeah. So basically, what this saying is that being that there is no like underlying crimes committed in this case, it'd be hard to charge someone with obstruction of justice, which is what they're kind of saying right here. But anyways, let's continue along. Fourth, we had communists after a thorough investigation that the facts that the president declared did not commit obstruction of justice. We would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, however, we were unable to reach that judgment. The evidence obtained about the president's actions intent presents difficult issues that prevent us from conclusively determining that no criminal conduct occurred. Accordingly, while this report does not conclude the president committed a crime, it does not exonerate him. So what that basically is saying is kind of what the bar statement said, is that Mueller did not make a judgment one way or another about obstruction of justice, because there were plenty of points where President Trump did kind of toe the line of exception. Like he told his advisors to actually go try to fire Mueller and all that. But of course, that did not materialize. So that's why it's like right on line. It's too broad to make a judgment. So that's why Mueller is more left it to Attorney General William Barr to make a decision. And of course, he said he just didn't find any sufficient evidence to charge President Trump with obstruction of justice, which makes sense because if this were brought up to like a regular like prosecutor session and all that, they would not take it. It's too broad. The evidence is just too inefficient to make a good judgment. And then, so I think Mueller here did make a good call, not trying to make a decision one way or another. But anyways, so yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Volume 2, that's basically kind of goes over little details where President Trump kind of towed the line of exception. But then again, he may have towed the line, but it didn't go all the didn't cross into obstruction. So yeah, so basically the gist of it. So overall, what we found out from this report is that there was no evidence of collusion with that Trump colluded with the Russian government in any way, shape, or form, and that obstruction of justice is just too weak to make a prosecution or charge him with. So yeah, so after 2 years of this whole nonsense, we're finally done. But we wasted 2 years off for this, which was kind of expected, I guess. Most conservatives kind of saw this coming from the beginning. But it was just frustrating. I could see why President Trump was frustrated for a while. Just because he knew he was innocent during that whole time and during the investigation. But just the media and everybody could claim, no, he's guilty, he's guilty, he's guilty. But before I get to the lesser reaction to all that, and I'm gonna to all this, I'm gonna go over a quick little piece from the Daily Wire. Basically, like kind of 8 little things, kind of explaining the entire report a little better than I can. So here's what it is, the title. The 8 things needed to know about the Mueller report is by Ben Shapiro. On Thursday, the long-awaited Mueller report finally dropped, like manna from the heavens to the start of mass media. The media quickly swiveled from their years-long contention that President Trump and his 2016 campaign colluded with Russia to contention that Trump obstructed justice in order to cover his non-collusion with Russia. That will be the talking point moving forward. That's that the cover-up was worse than the non-crime. The Mueller report is interesting in a variety of ways, and here are the biggest takeaways. One, the Trump-Russia collusion claims were partially overblown. While there were certainly members of the Trump team who acted suspiciously, including Trump, who continued to lie to the American public that no work was occurring on the Trump Tower Moscow deal during the 2016 campaign, the claims that Trump was a nefarious Russian agent were comically exaggerated. The Mueller report itself makes this clear. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency, it worked to secure that outcome, and that the campaign expected would benefit electorally from the information stolen and released through Russian efforts. The investigation did not establish that the members of the Trump campaign conspired and coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. The report makes similar statements repeatedly. There was no there. Two, the original suspicions regarding the Trump team may not have been unreasonable. One of the popular talking points these days concerning the Trump-Russia collusion investigation is that it was initiated in bad faith by an Obama intelligence apparatus concerned with the talking point down candidate Trump. Excuse me. That may be true, but there were plenty of smoke in the early days of the investigation. George Papadopoulos beating with Joseph Mifsud, I guess that's how you say it. A suspected Russian asset who allegedly bragged that he had access to Hillary Clinton's emails. Roger Stone bringing WikiLeaks promises to the attention of the Trump campaign. Trump's dishonesty regarding the continuation of Trump Tower Moscow negotiations. The June 2016 Trump Tower meeting. Carter Page's coordination with the Russia fronts while working for the Trump campaign. Page, for example, emailed several campaign officials in July 2016 stating that he had some incredible insights and outreach from a Russian legislators and senior members of the presidential administration here. Paul Manafort's involvement in the campaign while simultaneously doing the dirty work of Ukrainian oligarchs. 3. The Steele dossier is nowhere to be found. The Steele dossier, the intelligence mishmash funneled to Obama intelligence agencies via Fusion GPS barely comes up in the Mueller report, yet it was used repeatedly as the basis for a FISA warrant against Carter Page. It was presented directly to President Trump by a former FBI director, James Comey, then reported on broadly in the press. This raises serious questions as to how much the investigation worked over. Sorry about that. What was that? Yeah, this raises some serious questions as to how much the investigation morphed over time into an attempt to get to the Trump campaign, just how eager were members of the FBI, say Peter Strzok, to place extra weight on the dubious document of Operation Origin. 4. T. Mueller has an extraordinarily broad definition of obstruction of justice. Attorney General William Barr has come under serious fire for failing to prosecute Trump for obstruction of justice. He rightly pointed out that there is no underlying crime and that corrupt intent is one of the elements of the crime. Under the rubric, he stated in his March 24th letter, to obtain and sustain an exception conviction, the government would need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a person acting with a corrupt intent engaged in obstructive conduct with a sufficient nexus to a pending or contemplated proceeding. Today, to yesterday, Barr clarified his standard. Although the Deputy Attorney General and I disagree with some of the special counsel's legal theories, I felt, it felt that some of the episodes examined did not amount to exception as a matter of law. We did not rely solely on that in making our decision. Instead, we've cited the special counsel's legal framework for purposes of our analysis, evaluated the evidence as presented by the special counsel, and the reaching of a conclusion. In assessing the president's actions discussed in the report, it is important to bear in mind that in the context, President Trump faced an unprecedented situation. As he entered into office, he sought to perform his responsibilities as president. Federal agents and prosecutors were scrutinizing his conduct before and after taking office, and the conduct of some of his associates. And at the time, there were relentless speculation in the news media about the president's personal culpability, which reading that, I see why President Trump was always so frustrated with the media and, of course, as gentlemen and the intelligence agencies, because I know as soon as he got in office, they were claiming that he's unfit to be president. He is a illegitimate president and all that, which will be frustrating to anyone who takes the office. It continues. Yet, as he said from the beginning, there was in fact no collusion, and as the special counsel's report acknowledges, there is substantial evidence to show that the president was frustrated and angered by a sincere belief that the investigation was undermining his presidency, propelled by his political opponents and fueled by illegal leaks. Nonetheless, the White House fully cooperated with the special counsel's investigation, providing unfettered access to the campaign and White House documents, directing senior aides to testify freely, asserting no privilege claims, and at the same time, the president took no act that, in fact, deprived the special counsel of the documents, witnesses necessary to complete his investigation. Apart from whether the acts were obstructive, the evidence of non-corrupt motives weighs heavily against an allegation that the president had a corrupt intent to obstruct the investigation. But that's not the standard the Mueller board suggests for exception. According to that standard, obstruction of justice law reaches all corrupt conduct capable of producing an effect that prevents justice from being duly administered. All right, sorry about that. So, as I was saying, obstruction of justice law reaches all corrupt conduct capable of producing an effect that prevents justice from being duly administered, regardless of the means employed. An improper motive can render an actor's conduct criminal, even when the conduct otherwise be lawful within the actor's authority. The defendant need not directly impede the proceeding. The requisite showing a motive is made when a person acted with an intent to obtain an improper advantage for himself or someone else inconsistent with official duty and the rights of others. When the charge is acting with intent to hinder or delay or prevent a communication of information to a law enforcement under Section 1512b3, the nexus to proceeding inquiry articulated in Mueller, that an individual have knowledge that his actions are likely to affect the judicial proceeding does not apply because the obstructive act is aimed at the communication of information to investigators, not at impeding an official proceeding. While mere talk, abstract talk does not suffice to create the crime of attempt. Any concrete or specific acts that corroborate the defendant's intent can constitute a essential step. The omnibus clause of 18 USC 1503 prohibits an endeavor to obstruct justice, which sweeps more broadly than Section 512's intent provision. This broadly defined version of exception, whereby the president could undertake an otherwise legal act as long as it is capable of producing an effect, even if it does not directly impede a proceeding, so long as a person acts with intent to obtain improper advantage, allows the Mueller report to consider whether Trump tweeting about Michael Cohen being a rat or Paul Manafort being a solid citizen amounts to, obstruction of justice. The report says as much. In fact, take for this example. The president's public statements during the Manafort trial, including during jury deliberations, also had the potential to influence the trial jury. The president does have First Amendment rights. To suggest that public criticism of Robert Mueller or public praise of Paul Manafort amounts to criminal obstruction of justice requires an extraordinarily broad reading of obstruction of justice. That's also true of the presidential pardon power and the presidential power to fire. Trump certainly has the constitutional powers to, and simply implying an intent to test those powers turns prosecutors into all-powerful mind readers. Trump pardoning someone or firing someone with a corrupt intent may be impeachable. Is doubtful as criminal. 5. Trump is a bully who has no problem propagating for political gain and encouraging others to do so. With all this said, the report is humiliating for President Trump. He acted embarrassingly repeated with regard to Russia during the 2016 campaign. He defended Vladimir Putin. He lied about the Trump Tower in Moscow, and he praised WikiLeaks, and then he acted even more embarrassingly immorally in the order to avoid consequences of his original activity. Thus, he instructed Don Jr. to lie to the press in his statement about the Trump Tower meeting. He tried to push Don began to lie to the press regarding Trump's desire to fire James Comey. He tried via Corey Lewandowski to push Attorney General Jeff Sessions to talk about his innocence and constrict the scope of the Mueller investigation. He tried to pressure Sessions to recuse himself and publicly browbeat him to do so. He tried to began to fire Mueller based on non-essential accusations of conflict of interest. All this is immoral, wretched, and terrible behavior, but according to the Mueller report, each of these instances only hints at the violation of obstruction of justice. None of these incidents are dispositive. 6. Trump's team has prevented him from following through on his worst instincts repeatedly. Stop Trump from firing Sessions and Mueller. He refused to comply with Trump's order to lie about Mueller incident in a statement to the public. Jeff Sessions refused to recuse himself. Chris Christie refused to facilitate bizarre phone calls with James Comey. Rick Dearborn refused to threaten Jeff Sessions, and James Comey did in his investigation of Mike Flynn. As the report notes, The president's efforts to influence the investigation were mostly unsuccessful, but that is largely because the persons who surrounded the president declined to carry out orders or acceded to his request. Trump probably wasn't trying to cover up anything. Or seven, Trump probably wasn't trying to cover up anything. He was just rightly pissed off. This is Barr's point and happens to be true. Take, for example, Trump's reaction to the Mueller appointments. According to the report, Trump slumped in his chair and shouted, "Oh my God, this is terrible. This is the end of my presidency. I'm effed." Trump then added, "Everyone tells me that if you get one of these independent councils, it ruins your presidency. It takes years and years, and I won't be able to do anything. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me." Note he didn't say he was upset that Mueller might find something. He was worried that about the time. So, Trump routinely expressed his anger that the Mueller investigation kept going. He was angry at James Comey for failing to publicly declare he wasn't under investigation, which would have been true. He was enraged at Jeff Sessions for failing to limit the scope of the investigation. Again, there was no online conclusion to cover up. This was Trump lashing out his aides stopping him, or in too many cases lying to the public, but not the investigators. And Trump tweeting his rage at the universe. That's not corrupt intent, that's just immature but unassailable rage combined with the ignorance about the nature of the presidency and the legal system. 8. Team Mueller laid out the grounds for impeachment, not prosecution. The Mueller report's failure to lay out a recommendation of obstruction was obviously a roadmap to impeachment for Democrats. Mueller had three options: exonerate Trump, 2, declare that there was not enough evidence to indict Trump on obstruction, or refuse to take position. Option 2 was obviously the most correct here. It would clearly be impossible to prove obstruction beyond reasonable doubt, as Barr stated. Mueller's report provides counter evidence for every insinuation of guilt of exception. But Mueller went to option 3 instead, which leaves the door open to impeachment and placing blame on Barr, as Andy McCarthy writes. If Special Counsel Mueller believed that there was exception defense, he would have the courage of his convictions and recommended charging the president. So wasn't convinced there was enough evidence to charge. He should have said he wasn't recommending charges. So yeah. So yeah, I mean that's basically just it. I mean that's kind of explains it better than what I could. So anyways, how did the left react to this? Well, I mean, they reacted to how you expect them to react. They didn't really accept they accept the findings, but it took them a while, and they try to spin it in such a way, like that comment about Trump forgetting out, saying, "Oh my God, this is the end of my presidency." They try to turn that into a way, "Oh, Trump is definitely guilty of collusion," which is of course not true, as it says many times in the report. There's no evidence of collusion, but of course that didn't stop the media going kind of twisting the narrative and going to obstruction of justice, saying that he's definitely guilty of that. But again, there's not enough to charge him with. So basically, yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, it's done. It's over. I mean, yeah, wasted 2 years off for this, but where we go from here. I mean, so I hope. My hope is what President Trump does with this, that he holds on to this all the way to the 2020 election, and just kind of uses it as kind of a club against Democrats to show them that this is what they're willing to do to try to take me down. And I mean, I imagine it'll work. I mean, of course, the Democrats are saying, we're not going to go for impeachment, but of course, there are some. I mean, they're going to try to use that against Trump during the 2020 election. So I think he should use this against them. But we shall see. All right. So, being that today is Friday, it's not just any Friday too. It's Good Friday, which is obviously the day where Jesus was crucified on the cross. And so, yeah, that's kind of be our talking point from for the Friday segment, which is always like theology or something like that. So, anyways, yeah. On this day, about 2,000 some years ago, probably less than that, Jesus was, of course, arrested, beaten, mocked, and all that, just and crucified on the cross. Um, and of course, he was innocent of all crimes that were shouting against him. But but of course, the story, as we know, he did that all for us. He went through all that suffering and just pain just for us, so we don't die a criminal's death for our sins. He took our punishment for our sins on himself, so that we may be free and get to the Father. And as it says in John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he sent his only begotten Son, and whoever believes in him shall not perish and have eternal life. And that's the very reason why he came here. And of course, 3 days later on Easter, he was raised from the dead. And that just gives us the hope that we will be raised from our death, that we will die to our old sins, and raised from the death as someone new. All right. So I think that's all I have for today. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Before I go, I do have a quick little announcement. I know I do this usually do this every Wednesday and Friday, but Wednesdays are not going to work out for me anymore. So I'm going to do actually Tuesdays and Fridays now from now on. And it's going to be the same segments. Tuesday is going to be kind of good news, bad news for an ending segment, and then Friday is going to be the same theology and all that. So yeah, I'll see y'all on Tuesday. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and we're back for whatever crazy stuff happens in the news then. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God of Framing Show.